Well, without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest speakers today. Mike and Janae Rowley are the founders of Pinnacle Production and Manufacturing, a machine shop located in Duchesne, Utah, engaged in manufacturing and equipment. The Rowleys founded Pinnacle in 1997 and ran it for over 26 years until selling it just this year in 2023. Mike ran the operations side of the business as the CEO, and Janae was no less involved running all of the accounting and finances. And I'm sure Mike would tell you his number one piece of advice is either hire a really good accountant or marry one. So Mike and Janae now live in Manti, Utah, and are the parents of 8 children. Mike currently works for Snow College, where he manages the snowmobile, Snow College's new tech education, STEM, and entrepreneurship outreach vehicle. So please welcome Mike and Janae Rowley.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. Before I get started, I want to tell you something that'll change your life. When you go to the Maverick gas station, that changed my life. I went to the Maverick gas station. You know how when you start filling up, that TV starts playing and music, and you have to sit there and stare at it? Well, I was down in Gunnison actually filling up at the Maverick, and I'm sitting there going, oh man, just staring at that thing. And the guy around the other side of the pump goes, hey, doesn't that just irritate you? I said, yeah. He goes, want me to tell you how to turn it off? I'm like, yeah. So just so you know, the top white button on this side, if you push it, it stops playing. It just shuts off. It'll change your life. Anyway, if nothing else today, you'll come away from here with some information that will make your life a little better. I know, knowledge is power, isn't it? I used to have to sit there and suffer. Anyway, so yes, I'm going to show you something real quick here. Now, got to have my glasses on. When I started my business, I didn't have to wear these. But now, so this is right here. In technology, in front of people. Okay, so this is the website for our company. The guy that bought it from me actually put this together. I never had one the whole time I was doing it. But then I thought you could at least see Pinnacle Production and Manufacturing. We did start 26 years ago. And what we do is this. And you got to see some of this as you're coming in. Maybe not all of you did. But this is what we would do. We'd take, you can see, we take metal. We'd use aluminum, stainless steel, carbon steel. We'd use plastic, titanium. We've done all kinds of different kinds of material. But we take the part of raw material and we machine it into whatever our customers would pay us to do. We never made any of those though. Anyway, I wouldn't mind making one of those. So that's all we had. That's all I had to show you there. Will that just go away if I shut that? Okay. So we would build whatever people would say, what do you make? Whatever people will pay me to make. And so we had several customers and we would make parts for them and hopefully they liked them and they'd have us make more parts. So what I wanted to start with is to, made me a few notes here so I don't miss anything. Okay, so when I started this, I'm going to kind of go back to when I was a kid. So how many of you were here last week and listened to the guy that wrote the books about Fable Haven or whatever? Okay, he said something. He says, man, my mind was always thinking about, stories about, fantasy stories. He could come up with his mind. He just could come up with the greatest stories. He was always thinking about it. And I was kind of that way when it came to being an entrepreneur. I remember one of my first memories of that is I grew up on a cherry farm in Payson. I don't know if you guys know where Payson is up here, but we raised pie cherries. And also we would grow potatoes and we'd do some tomatoes. And I remember we'd harvest the potatoes and we'd spend all winter sorting them out of an apple bin is what they were in. And we would bag them up, sew them. And my grandma and grandpa would take them to Montana because I had an aunt and uncle lived up there and they put an ad in the paper. They'd drive clear to Montana, a big old 2-ton truck loaded with potatoes and sell them. And I remember in my little mind, I'm going, well, this seems like by the time you drive up there and all the work we're putting into this, you're not going to make any money. And my grandma says, we're farmers. We don't worry about that. I said, okay, just. And then I remember in high school, I had, a few things I did. And when I was in college, I tried to start doing some T-shirts that I would draw on them on the T-shirt and sell them. And then shortly after I got married, well, right after I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And when I got home, I did what any American would do. I joined Amway and tried that for a while, multi-level business. And then I quickly, in my little brain, thought, I don't think this is going to work. So I went on to something else. And then shortly after I was married, I tried to start a quick change business where you change people's oil. You'd go to them and change their oil where they were. So they could be at work and inside working, I'd pull up, change their oil. Tried that for a while and realized, no, this isn't going to work out. Trying to think if there's any others I forgot. Oh, one time I've always wanted to have my own business. I've always wanted to have a business of my own. So one time I thought, well, maybe I could do a painting business. And I asked my uncle-in-law, I said, what would you think about if I started a painting business? How would I go about that? He said, well, the first thing I would do, I'd go work for a painter for a while, make sure you like it. So that's a good idea. So my brother-in-law, he's a school teacher, and in the summer, him and I worked on painting an inside of a house for a friend. And by the time we got done with that, I knew I'd never wanted to be a painter. I just knew that. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be a painter. Then I started working. I may have skipped something here, but I was just always thinking that way. And I'd see something and I'd think, oh, that might be a good business. So I started working at a place called UN Machine, and that's where I learned about manufacturing parts and machining parts. And I don't really remember how I found out about it, but there was a little clock that looked like a fly fishing reel, and then it had a clock in the middle. And somehow somebody got that to me, and they said, hey, you could make these. And so I was thinking, oh, I wonder if I could do this. And so I went to Central Machine. It was the other machine shop in town. And I said, hey, how would you bid this material? And how would you, make this? And asking questions about it. And he kind of gave me some ideas about how he could do that. And well, one day he called me up. He says, hey, I'd like you and Janae to come over and visit with us. And I said, oh, okay. So we came over and visited. And we knew him as a family friend. We knew him at church and different things. And he sat us down, him and his wife, who owned Central Machine, said, we'd like to start another business, a little machine shop, and we want to go in partnership with you and Janae. And we're like, oh, okay. And so he kind of explained it all. And he says, you guys are going to put sweat equity. We're going to, we're going to invest a little bit, and you'll run it. You'll do everything. And we're like, okay. And he says, but, think about it, ponder on it, and pray about it. I said, okay. Okay. Our eyes were this, okay. So we left there and went over to her father's house, who lived in the same town as us, and told him, well, what do you think? He says, well, you can pray about it if you want, but I'd do it. So we told, okay, we'll do it. And so we started from scratch. I had zero. He put a little bit of money in. He invested $20,000 that we didn't have to pay back, and then everything else we had to pay back with interest that he lent us at first to get started. And we went and bought one lathe. So a lathe, just so you know, holds the material, and the material spins. And as you saw in here, the tools just feed across. And that's a lathe. A mill is like a giant drill press. So we went and bought a little lathe, and we had a saw. And it worked out really good. The first week I was there, about killed myself. So I had the machine open. I was trying to figure out how to run it, because with these CNC machines, you have to program a code as a language. You're sitting there typing it in, go to X this, Z that, and M0 means this, and G1 means rapid. And I had programmed in a code to make these little, I actually got a job to build these little clocks. And I hit the go button, and I said, that doesn't look, just as I went to say right, it slammed into the part, and the part flipped out and hit me right here in the head and knocked me to the ground. And I was the only employee at that time. So I get up and I put my hand up there, and I'm just covered in blood. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I grab a rag and I drive myself to the clinic, and I walked in there and said, I think I'm going to need stitches. And they're like, yes, you are. And they took me back to the emergency room and there and stitched me up. And that's where we started with. And I mean, I remember a week later, I was trying to cut material on the saw, and I was going through saw blades, and they were $25 a piece, and I was breaking them. I called Janae, and I said, I was in tears, really. I said, we're going to be done before we even get started here. And she, of course, was my cheerleader and said, oh, it'll be okay. You'll figure it out. And I did. I figured out that if you buy a certain kind of saw blades, they last a lot longer. They're twice the money, but they last 10 times longer. And being an entrepreneur, a big part of it is solving problems. So we solved that problem. We started out small, and over the years we grew to where we had 6 employees. We had probably 10 of those machines like you saw in the video making parts for us, and some 3D printers as well. And we were doing about 1.6 something million dollars a year in sales. So we were doing well. We felt like we had accomplished something. And like Russ said, Janae was my partner, and I would advise you to either take a class on accounting or marry an accountant. And I married an accountant, so I married a pretty accountant, and it worked out really well. And the business wouldn't have made it without her. I'd have been out of business a long time ago if she wouldn't have been there to help me count the beans, so to speak. Okay. So our goals as we started this business, though, were to put out good parts and to give good customer service. And one of my pieces of advice to you is to be nice and do what you say you're going to do. I'd have customers call up and say, "Can you have these by Thursday? We really need them by Thursday." I said, "I can't have them if I could, I would. But if I couldn't, I'd tell them I can't have them by Thursday, but I can have them by Friday." And they would be, "Well, I need them Thursday." I said, "Well, I don't, it doesn't matter how much we want and how much I try to be nice about it. There's no way humanly possible for to have them on Thursday." And sometimes they'd be a little upset, but I had them on the day I said I'd have them. And that's one of the things I would encourage you to do if you start a business. Do what you say you're going to do. Because once people know they can count on it, that's actually a thing for life, right? Be able to be counted on. So do what you say you're going to do. And then they would learn after a while, if they called up and they said they need them by a certain day, when can you have them? If I told them, "Well, I can have them on next Friday," they go, "Okay," because they knew I would have them. And I'd work late. We would work long hours. We would do whatever. We'd get 2 machines on it because I said I'd have it Friday. And so I do what it takes to have it there Friday. If we made a bad part, so this is a manufacturing business. This is, some of the things you've heard about or different kinds of industries. But in manufacturing, there are times where you send parts out and somebody didn't measure right. And we would hold tolerances within tenths of a thousandths. Now, a human hair, you know how thin a human hair is. A human hair is 3 thousandths thick if you measured with some calipers. Well, we would hold tenths of 1 thousandths a lot of times over some of these parts. And sometimes you send them out and, we have human beings running the machines and they'd measure wrong and the customer would call back and say it doesn't work. And so I always told them, "Okay, we'll fix it. We'll make new ones." And I'd always get the old ones back because if they're good enough to keep, they're good enough to pay for. So I'd always get them back and give them new ones because we guaranteed our work. And so I think over the 26 years, that's one of the things that we stayed in business with. We built relationships with our customers, and they knew they could count on us. We had one customer that told me one day, he says, "You're one of 3 people we allow to walk in our shop." And I'm going to attribute that to being, building relationships. And there's a lot to that. I've dealt with people that I've gone to work with that own businesses. Like I go there to do work for them, and I'm like, they act like they're God's gift to the world. And I'm like, I don't know who, just be nice. Don't act like you're so special. I'm here to help you. And I'd do everything I could to help them succeed. That was my goal, was to help them succeed. So I've heard over the times that we've been here, I've been here for several weeks because I really enjoyed listening about entrepreneurship. And I've had people say, well, somebody always asks, "So why do you want to go into business?" And, everybody raise their hand. Usually the number one thing is be my own boss. Number 2 right behind it is make lots of money. Okay, those are very possible. But for me, it's like if you would have asked me, "Okay, if you want to start a business, what would it be?" It would not have been a machine shop. That is not what I was thinking about. That happened to come to me. But what I loved about it was making it work. And with Janae's help, we made it work. One of my most enjoyable things, this might sound funny to you though, was if we had $40,000 come in, we'd sit down and pay our bills. We loved it. Click, 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 click. We'd go down there on QuickBooks and pay all the bills. And it was even more amazing if we could pay ahead. I love paying ahead. I love paying my bills on time. I've worked with people that I had to beg to get a check from them. I don't know how they manage their business that way, but you're like, "Hey, could I get a check? I got payroll or whatever." I made it my goal to never have anybody ever have to call me and say, "Where's my money?" So I think that that's a very important thing to do. But I loved when people would order from us. My favorite thing was if someone had a problem. We had a customer that came in and they had a problem. I'm just going to try to visualize this with you, okay? They had a shaft this long. This end had like a teardrop on it. This end had a bunch of threads, and then they screwed a thing on there, and then they would weld that thing on the end. It was called a fishnet, okay? Well, these things would go down in a gas well, 18 we're 100 feet down in the ground. But anyway, they were having issues with this part breaking. And they're like, everybody's breaks. Everybody in the industry, they break. They get down there and they fracture right there. And I said, well, the reason is because you got threads. And threads are what? Sharp, pointy things that go up and down. Well, that's a fracture point. So it's going to break right there. When it's stressed, it could fracture. And they said, what can we do different? And so I thought about it. I said, well, what if we make the thingy we screw on here? I'm using some technical stuff here, okay? So try to follow me. The thingy, if we screw it on there, what if we don't screw that on? What if we make that all one piece? And then we come down here and that ball that's on this end, what if we make it separate with a hole in it and we heat it up and we make it so that it won't fit unless you heat it red hot and then you drop it on there, and when it cools down, it's never going to come off. We did that, and we put it in a 40-ton press, and it wouldn't budge. We pounded on it, it wouldn't budge. And so we solved their problem by just thinking a little bit different, and now they don't break. They last and last. And to me, that was, I mean, yeah, we made money. We never went without it. Obviously never went hungry. I mean, we did well in our lives with owning a business, but to me, that's what brought satisfaction, was helping customers and our customers to succeed and to come back to us again and again. Okay, let me see here. Okay, so I've heard a lot of people that talk about entrepreneurship. They say, pick something you love, do what you love. And I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to kind of go against what those people say. And I mean, that is good, but I'm going to tell you to pick something that'll make money, okay? Because you're in this business to make money. That's what it's about. And if your thing you love to do doesn't make money, I wouldn't turn it into a business, okay? I would find something that will make you money. And another thing about it is, sometimes if you have a wonderful hobby that you think, man, this would be so great, I love doing this, and I would love doing it full time and having people pay me. That can work, but I have a good friend that loved guns. Oh, he loved guns. He was just shooting long range and all that kind of stuff. We started a gun company. It's called Una Precision. Maybe some of you have heard of it. Now he hates guns. he says that's a good way to ruin a hobby. Just make a business out of it. Because now he has to do it, and he has all these problems. He's got employees, he's got machines, he's got laws and rules and things he has to worry about. And so, I think it's okay to do that if you want to, but I don't know if I would encourage you to make something you love to do as a hobby into a business. Let's see, what time have we got here? About 1. Okay, so left. Okay, before Janae's turn. Okay, is there anything I skipped, hon, that you want to tell me to say? Yes. So vendors, this is another thing I would do. Don't treat your vendors with respect. The people that will be supplying you with stuff, they're so important to you. My vendors, I would go out to a place called Encore Metals to pick up the raw material. And I'd go in there, and every once in a while, I'd stop by the little convenience store and get a bag of jerky. And I'd take it into the guys that loaded me. And I'd, hey, how you doing, guy? Here, have a stick of jerky. These are just the guys in the warehouse. And I mean, I say just, but they're not bosses. They don't determine much, but they do determine if my truck gets loaded or not and how fast it gets loaded. And I'll tell you what, when I pulled in there, I got loaded. They took care of me. And so take care of the people that take care of you. Okay, that's another thing to think about. Okay, so one last thing, and then I'm going to turn this over to Janae. So I've been through the cycle. Okay, you guys are sitting there looking at this. Okay, what if I start a business? I'm starting out. Janae and I have started it. We've lived it. And then there's one thing that people never think about, and you need to write this down. I see some of you taking notes, is your exit strategy. How are you going to get out of it? So you start this business, and someday you might want to quit. But what if nobody wants to buy it? What if you don't make a business that somebody wants to buy? Or that you can't quit? What if you have too many people depending on you for food? So I always thought about, what if I had to stop today? Like, I think, okay, I could sell all the machines. If my guys could go find other jobs, but how would we be? And I always thought about that. And the other thing you need to think about is, what do you want out of this business? So I'm going to share a story with you. It'll only take 2 minutes to read. I found this on the wall at Jimmy John's, okay, which is great. I mean, Jimmy John's is a place of happiness, right? And it's called, you can find it online, but it says, an American investment banker was at the pier of a small coastal Mexican village when a small boat with just one fisherman docked. Inside the small boat were several large fin tuna. The American complimented the Mexican on the quality of his fish and asked how long it took him to catch them. The Mexican replied, only a little while. The American then asked why he didn't stay out longer and catch more fish. The Mexican said, he had enough to support his family and his immediate needs. The American then asked, but what do you do with the rest of your time? The Mexican fisherman said, I sleep late, I fish a little, play with my children, take a siesta with my wife. Maria, I stroll into the village each evening where I sip wine and play guitar with my amigos. I have a full and busy life. The American scoffed, I am a Harvard MBA and I could help you. You should spend more time fishing and with the proceeds buy a bigger boat. And then with the proceeds from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats. And eventually, you would have a fleet of fishing boats. Instead of selling your catch to the middleman, you would sell directly to the processor, eventually opening your own cannery. And then you would control the product, processing and distribution. You would need to leave this small coastal fishing village and move to Mexico City, then LA, and eventually New York City, where you will run your expanding enterprise. The Mexican fisherman asked, well, how long does this take? And to which the American replied, 15 to 20 years. But then what? The Mexican asked. He says, well, the American laughed and said, well, that's the best part. When the time is right, you would announce an IPO and sell your company's stock to the public and become very rich. You would make millions. Millions? Asked the fisherman. Well, then what? Well, the American said, then you would retire, move to a small coastal fishing village where you would sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take a siesta with your wife, go into the village and, anyway, you get what I'm saying. So when you start your business or company or whatever it is, enterprise you decide to do, think about what do you want out of life, okay? More is not always better. I knew a guy that had a day shift and a swing shift. He had 14 employees. Man, he was making parts all day long. And he said, you know what? After a while, I cut back to one shift and 7 employees. I make more money and I get more sleep. So think about what you want out of life. Do you want to be Elon Musk? Great, go for it. But you got to be willing to sacrifice some things too. Or do you just need enough to get by and have, like I've told people about my business, someone else would have had it 5 times the size. Someone else would have been out of business by the end of the 26 years. But we had what we wanted. And then we were able to sell it. And to now, we moved to Manti, and I'm working at Snow College because I want to work at Snow College. And if I don't want to work at Snow College, then I'll quit working at Snow College. It's really nice to be able to do that. But that part of that was because also, one other thing I need to tell you, when you start a business, start making money, you don't go buy the $75,000 pickup right off the bat, okay? You do what, what's the guy Dave Ramsey, live like no one else today so you can live like no one else tomorrow. And we did that. We always drove used cars. We lived in a modest home. And we did a lot of that stuff. So now we can live and not have to work if we don't want to. And it does work. Where you're sitting, that seems like forever, but all of a sudden here I am, 56, and I'm going, where did it go? So anyway, I better give some time to Janae before we run out. And then after she's done, oh, yes, sir.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you exited.
Do you want?
You can or I can.
Okay, I'll let her do a little bit about that. Yeah, that is good to know how we did it. Thank you.
So you good? Okay, so our exit strategy, we started about 4 years ago feeling like we either had to grow or sell or something. We were getting on in years and decided we didn't really have the energy or the desire to grow. We'd already grown from 1 man to 6 or 7 men, 1 machine to a whole shop full of machines. And so we just started looking. And Mike had also gotten to where he was doing everything. He was the shipping, he was receiving, he was the salesman, he was the shop foreman. And so we needed to find a way that it would be more of a turnkey organization so that someone could walk in and be able to take over. So we had to get all the knowledge in his head into procedures and into the employees' minds. And so we started working on that. And then it took 4 years to find a buyer who was actually viable. We had several people come in and, oh, I'm interested, but no financing. Or we had one company come, well, we'd like to look at you, and then they give you a lowball offer. And it's like, nope, we're not going to take our baby that we made and just hand it over to you. And so we just kept kind of working, plugging along. We made it through COVID. That was a challenge, but we made it. And then we found this buyer who did have the financing. He's 27, he's young, he's been to machining school, he's also been to business management school. And that process took about 9 months. It is not fast. So you just take your time, cross all your T's, dot all your I's, and then that's how we exited from that business. And also one thing with our partner, Farrell, we were in business with him for about 12 years, and then we bought him out for 10 years. So that's how it ended up being just Mike and I. But so I wanted to share a couple things. As I've come and listened to the seminars here with the answers of, I want to be in my own business so I can have money. Take an accounting class. If you truly want to be an entrepreneur, you need to understand the differences between sales and profit. So you can have, we can have a $40,000 job. And you're like, wow, we're awesome. We've got a $40,000 job. Well, the raw material costs $30,000. That's only a $10,000 profit. So you have to know that general accounting, cost accounting, just have a general idea of the numbers. So I can't stress enough how much just an accounting class would bless or help you have profit in your business. And then the next thing I've heard is, I want to be my own boss. I want to have my own time. And that is fantastic. Being an entrepreneur, when Mike and I started the shop, one of our goals was that we would never work on Sunday and would never have our employees work on Sunday. And then our second goal was we would try to never work on Saturday because you need a weekend. And when you're the entrepreneur, if we went on vacation during the week, he'd get a phone call twice, 3, 4 times a day. So we didn't want to open on Saturday. We wanted to have our own life on Saturday. So that's great. And you can do that. You can have your goals and do that. But that's a little different than actual just time management. We have a friend who is an excellent welder. He does architectural welding. He welds staircases and butler sinks for $1 million homes. He's fantastic. And he cannot manage his time. And he's told us that. That's how we know the story. But he'll have these jobs. He gets up at 8 in the morning. He puts in a 12-hour shift, and the job still isn't done because it gets sidetracked, welding this for a farmer or welding this for a friend. And so you need to know time management. Not just that you don't want to work weekends, but how to choose and prioritize what job is best when and how to get the job done in time. So those were 2 things that we learned really quick, is that we needed to have time management and an understanding of accounting.
So I was just going to mention, stay here so we can hear that. With that accounting, when you sell your business, you need to know what you're doing when it comes to accounting, because we sold ours through they bought our shares. And so they gave us 20% down, and then we've owner financed the rest over 15 years when we charged them an interest rate, because they couldn't get the whole amount. No bank in the world's going to lend them that, right? But when you sell your business, there's tax consequences, and that's another reason why you need to know a little bit about taxes and need counsel with an accountant, because when you deduct things over the years, you've heard about, you can buy this truck and deduct it off your expenses. Well, some of those things come back when you sell it if you do an asset purchase. Now, I might be blowing your mind with all these terminology, but if you do an asset purchase, some of those deductions, right, can all come back. And so you better sell your business for enough to pay for all that capital gains, or you're going to sell it and not have anything. And that's one of the reasons that helped us decide how to sell our business. Anyway, that's down the road, but just remember, if you start a business, think about how you're going to get out of it. Always think about it. That doesn't mean you think you're going to fail. I think it's just smart to think about if I had to quit today or long term, how am I? One of the things when we had a company come look at us, that was one of the detrimental things of me doing everything, is they said, well, we want to buy you, but who's going to take your place? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Because that was one of the reasons they didn't want to buy us, because I leave and it was probably a mistake for me to be all those hats. And so we had thought about hiring someone to manage the business so that if I left, they would know all that I know, which normally it doesn't take much to know all I know, but with this particular thing, it did. And so, but anyway, we thought, okay, we decided we're going to do that. And it was so interesting because the very next day I went home and told Jeanette, I said, we got to sell the business. She goes, what? We just decided to hire. I know, but I just get this feeling we're supposed to sell it. Anyway, it all worked out well. I do want to say one other thing that Janae and I are partners, but we also involved God. And I don't, whether you're religious or not, if you're religious, involve whatever you believe in. It'll make a difference um, in your whole life. But even in business, it makes a difference. And so we have just a little bit of time left. 10 minutes. Okay. For questions. I want to tell you one. I don't know if any of you noticed this. Okay. I just had to show you this. Okay. So, sorry. This is a Canon. Okay. And so even after I had my own business, I kept thinking of things. So I saw some of these on YouTube and I thought, well, we're a machine shop. We could build one of those. So we built a cannon. And it's out of stainless steel. It's an old naval cannon and it shoots. And it really is a lot of fun. But anyway, and I thought we could sell these. But anyway, I was busy running the business and I thought those would be great. And then Janae makes these amazing ginger snaps. And she can tell you every time she does something, I said, these are so awesome. And she puts cayenne pepper in them. And they have this kick and they're amazing. I said, honey, you've seen Grandma's cookies. You could sell these just like Grandma's cookies. And she said, no, I cook for love. I'm not going to make money off it. I said, you know how many people have been millionaires? The Keeblers, Mrs. Fields, off of selling cookies? She says, nope. Anyway, I'm still always thinking about that in that mindset. And I was going to show you a video of this. It's really cool to blow up a can of Cheese Whiz with it. But anyway. And Ready Whip just explodes if you shoot it with Ready Whip. Okay, I'll look for it. Do you have any questions that you want to ask while I look for it? She'll answer. I don't know if I can get it on here, but no questions. We answered.
So, you guys have 8 kids. You ran a business. You have 20 kids. You can't do business, I guess. But how did you run your business, raise your 8 children, and do this being partners together?
Well, one thing we didn't have 8 kids when we started. We had 4. But I did the books at home, so I was still at home. And then Mike was the business at the shop, and that's how I had my office at home, and then actually, as our children got into their teens, we would hire them to do bookwork. You've got QuickBooks on your computer, and someone just has to enter in bills, and you don't have to have a knowledge of accounting to enter in bills. So our kids had helped that way. None of our children wanted our business. They would go down as teenagers and work running machines, and they're like, we don't want to do this. So that's one reason why it didn't go to family, is they're like, we're not interested, sorry. We don't want to be a machinist. And we did I was not the only accountant. We had a hired accountant who was very savvy in the depreciation, in the tax law changes. I graduated from accounting in 92. Everything's changed. But that's how we worked. We each had our roles, and mine was the bookwork. His was running the shop. So that's how we made it balance with the family.
Can I do my phone to this?
So a machine shop is it's a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Heavy investment.
Capital intensive.
Yes, capital intensive. That's what I'm looking for. And that's where we had to have a partner who could get the loans. I mean, one CNC machine is $200,000.
They used to be.
They're more than that
They're more
now.
than that now.
So we had to have a partner. But the way we got a partner was through his current job. He was a machinist working, and through networking. They were our good friends. They lived down the road. So that also helped, was just networking and letting people know your ideas, finding someone who's interested in making investments. And it paid off very well for him. He invested $200,000, and when we bought him out, we paid him $600,000. Plus, he financed that, so all the interest. So he did great. So find someone who can help you with that investment. So, any other
Okay.
questions before you?
Oh yeah, before I blow up this Ready Whip. Any other? Okay.
Okay,
So
awesome.
this is 2 cans of Ready Whip. There's the lid, you can see, and the cans going down the road there in the background. That was actually, so this is 20 grains of powder in this, and we put 2 of these in. I'll find the Cheese Whiz real quick, see if I can find it for you, and then you probably should. Well, you can go to Unit Precision on their website, and they sell them. I made them, and they're selling them for me. Well, for
Pinnacle.
Pinnacle, it's no longer my.
It's actually powder.
It's actually gunpowder, and
And a little ball.
it's a buckshot, what we call it. There's gunpowder, yeah, powder and. Oh, just at Sportsman's Warehouse. This might be the Cheese Whiz. No.
Well, he's looking for that. One thing that we had as a goal in our company is that the employees in our company would want to come to work and that they would feel valued. And so things like this, having fun shooting cannons. There was a time when they had remote control cars that they did during breaks. They had a foosball table, cornhole boards. I mean, they worked hard. But just to break up the monotony, we always strive to pay our employees really well. Mike always supplied breakfast. That was a given.
Insurance.
We wanted the shop was clean. The inside of the shop was white. Just tried to make it a pleasant place to work and to let the employees know that they're valued, because without them, you can't make parts. And so that was one of our philosophies in our business, is that the employees knew how valuable they were treated well. It was a pleasant place to work. And they also were free to come and give advice. If they came to Mike and said, hey, this insert would make my machine run better, he'd buy it. It's like, okay, let's get that insert for you.
Listen to your employees.
So value your employees. And there's a question.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm kind of old fashioned, so I wasn't super automated. And that was one of the things that I did. Some of my employees were pretty computer savvy, and they started helping me to automate our orders, all of our drawings online. Because when I used to had paper drawings, we did automate a lot of stuff. And I relied on my employees to help me do that, because from an era when I didn't know all that. So, and the machines are pretty automated anyway. I just bought the latest technology, and I always bought the latest technology. It never failed me. You might think, I'm gonna go buy an old used one. Just buy the cheapest new one you can get, maybe, or something. But I would get the newest stuff you can. Okay, I'm gonna show you this one. I think you probably all need to head out. This is a can of Cheese Whiz. At Christmas time we put on the crackers, but buckshot goes through it pretty good.
I'm ready.
It doesn't explode, but the slow motion version of it, you see the cheese just goes out the back, and anyway, it's fun. We probably better let you go. But anyway, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
You.